Hello, beautiful people out there. I am very excited today. Mercury and Jupiter have come together, and I just feel like teaching and talking and doing all of the things. And this little video that I'm putting together for you today has been in the pipeline for God knows how long. Every year I write it in my list of things to do, and then another year goes by and I haven't done it. But Mercury's in Aries at the moment. This Mercury Jupiter conjunction in Aries is just like fire, baby. I'm recording this on the 28th of March 2023, just so you know. It is the day of Ruby, which is the spiritual warrior, which is about the fire and the courage and the passion. So it makes sense that I'm here. For any of you who don't know me, I'm Tiani. I have a podcast, Tiani Talks Astrology, my Instagram, Tiani Talks, all the things Tiani talking. I myself have Mercury trine Jupiter in my natal chart, nearly exact. So, talking is what I do best. And astrology has been my language since I was 9 years old. Obviously, it's been my language for eons and eons in eons. I have a South Node Aquarius in the fifth, and I've been teaching it for eons and eons. I had my head chopped off because I was teaching astrology back in past lives, beheaded. I wasn't one of those burnt at the stake witches in a past life. I was actually beheaded because of my speaking. Yeah. Just so that you have a little bit of FYI, so it makes sense that I'm here. My natal Mercury is in Gemini. The transiting Mercury today is in Aries, and actually making a beautiful sextile to my own palace. So of course I want to be sharing information. Astrology for me, and since Uranus moved into Taurus, I've been talking about astrology as the language of the future. Now, Uranus and Mercury both rule astrology. And like I said, I've been speaking this language. It's the only language I actually know. It's something that's embodied for me. It's not clinical. It's not intellectual. Yes, you have to learn the language to actually be able to understand and integrate what's going on. But so much of it is through embodiment and experience and lived wisdom. That can be through eons or can be through this lifetime in which we remember. Yeah. So I wanted to put together this video, and I will go in all different directions as I always do. But I wanted to put together this little video because it's an important video just to simply show you what a chart looks like, what you're looking at, how to find your chart, the best website to use for your chart, just a couple of little tips and tricks. Like ultimately, astrology is free, my darlings. Go to the library and borrow books. When you see an astrologer, you're not paying for the freedom of astrology. Now, astrologers can have, well, some, this elitism, like, oh, it's hard to get there. And what are they talking about? It seems like a foreign language. And it is. It's a language, We have to learn the grassroots of this language to be able to embody, interpret, understand, live, experience astrology. It's a felt language. We literally are the cosmos. We are the universe experiencing itself. We are made up of stardust. We are made up of earth dust. That's what we are. Yeah. So yes, you do have to have an intellectual component when it comes to astrology, but ultimately, once you understand the language, the basics, but knowing that at a real foundational level, because you see everyone want all the fancy stuff. Oh, but look at my kite and look at my trine, blah, blah, blah. It means nothing if you don't know where Mars is transiting through your chart at the moment. Like if you're not even knowing your micro, all of the macro, yes, you can tune into it. You can plug into the social media bandwagon, all the bullshit, but it means nothing if you're not actually embodying it, if you're not embracing what it means for you on a day-to-day level. And I mean, this, darlings, is one of my specialties. I mean, I have a book called Everyday Enlightenment. I've got a Pisces ruled sixth house. So, living spiritually has been, and being able to integrate whilst being a young mother, I haven't had the freedom to, flip off to Bali every 2 weeks to be held in containers and take ayahuasca to be enlightened, blah, blah, blah. Like that shit's easy, being a human and integrating experiences and spiritual wisdoms and divine, devotional, synchronistic, universal connection. that takes effort, and that takes consistency and spiritual discipline. Spiritual discipline and being spiritual are two very, very different things. And one of my magnum opuses is that it's about the magic in the mundane. And that is, something that I've been saying for decades. That's what my whole book is called, Everyday Enlightenment, Magic in the Mundane. Because it's actually when you're hanging your washing out, or when you're getting every red light, or when you've got to go to the shops and get fucking toilet paper. There's more spiritual practice in that, or being kind to your neighbor, or helping your neighbor, mowing your lawn. Like, this is spiritual wisdom. What do we do before and after enlightenment, darlings? We chop wood and carry motherfucking water. And that is spiritual enlightenment. And that has a lot to do with astrological wisdom, okay? So it's very easy to flit off and be held in all of these containers. And am I saying that they're not good? No, absolutely not. Like, I've done a lot of trainings and teaching with Brandon Bays and been held in lots of beautiful containers in my 20s as well. It's a beautiful platform. But when you rely on that to become how you are spiritual, when you're in your everyday life, that's not real. Sitting in a container being love bombed and, oh, she's amazing, blah, blah, blah. That's not real life. Like, real life is in your four walls. Real life is in your community. Real life is getting your hands dirty. Real life is death, grief, like all these spiritual couples that are like, oh, look at us, we go to 8 million spiritual temples and we meditate together. I'm like, fuck that, that's boring. That shit's easy to do together. Can I watch you guys put a tent up together? I'd like to see that. Can I watch you grieve together when a parent's died, or when someone close to you's died? Like, that is the real wisdom. Like, that is embodied magic. And I am all practical magic, darlings. I have a stellium in Taurus. It's all about practical magic. And this has been what I've been doing for decades and decades. Like, we're going into like nearly 25 years. This has been my life's work. So I want to obviously always share this. And astrology, like I said, is free. That's where I was going with that little tangent. It's free. Anyone has access to this. I always call it a secret, not so secret superpower, because it's actually not a secret. And once you understand the fundamentals and the foundations, it doesn't have to be this like, oh my God, you're like, I don't know what they're talking about. Excuse me. I can feel the ruby, and I'm taking liquid crystal diamond at the moment. So, I have a lot of energy going through me right now. So much energy. So it doesn't have to be this really complex thing. It's layered. It's rabbit hole after rabbit hole. Do not get me wrong. You don't just sort of study astrology for 3 years and you're an astrologer. Like, that's not how it works. It's through embodiment and practice and experience. Even to unpack your own chart continues to take decades and decades and decades. Why astrology? For me, astrology has the answer for everything. Why someone acts, behaves, why something happens. We can look at it in mundane ways, where, Fukushima happens. Oh, it's the day that Uranus moved into Aries. Hadn't been in Aries for 84 years, and Fukushima happens. I just learned from a beautiful astrologer friend today, Austin Kopic, that when Pluto moved into Capricorn, that was when those terrorists took over that Mumbai hotel. Now, I don't know if you've watched that on Netflix, but it is fucking intense. And I've watched a lot of those sort of movies, and it's quite debilitating to think that that's what they did. That was Pluto moving into Capricorn the day of that ingress. Structures, government, they took over a building. Yeah. And we've just had Pluto ingress into Aquarius for the first time in 248 years. And what are we all of a sudden looking at? AI, AI systems taking over, or companies wanting to use them and utilize them. So all of a sudden, we're going to move away from, the violence of, capitalism or patriarchy, or, that very Capricornian, the structures and governments and things like that. And we're moving into like a psychological warfare on some level. Pluto moving into Aquarius, this is a big deal. Like, this will be the next 20 years of our lives. And, however old you are, fucking tack on 20 years to that, because this is our next 20 years is Pluto in Aquarius. And Aquarius is technology and AI and progression and innovation as well, though. But this warfare now turns into, you know, online shit, which we know, you know, and there's some pretty full-on things happening, bullying online, teenagers, like it is, I can't go into it now because I will start crying, but the online warfare that we'll have, and that is psychologically damaging people to the point that they don't want to be here anymore at very young ages, it's a problem. It is a huge problem, and we've only just begun. Okay, we've only just begun with Pluto in Aquarius. Just take a look back. Saturn in Aquarius for 2.5 years, 2020 through 2023. I mean, the division, the you're right, I'm wrong, the segregation, the rules. It's fixed air. And now Pluto moves into fixed air. And whilst there's this excitement as well, we've never been through it, there's going to be some rad shit come out of it, of course, but Pluto destroys things, and it's sort of like adapt or die, you know, like, and if you're not adapting and going with it, you're dying. That is Pluto. Anyway, I could talk for a million hours about a million things, but I'm just sort of painting the picture that astrology is fundamentally the language that has been for eons. Like it is the star language, the cosmic language has been around. Cosmic, you know, I'm saying cosmic calendar because I'm just about to put out a subscription base with the cosmic calendar, but the cosmic calendar of watching the stars, you know, twinkle, twinkle, little star, that's Venus. Venus is an evening star, then she's a morning star. This is astronomy. Now, as much as astronomers don't like astrologers, us astrologers froth on astronomers. You know, hello, like astronomy is everything because it's the planets, and that's what we are interpreting. And you can look at mythology, you know, you can go back to a Hellenistic, traditional, all the things. There's no right or wrong. But the thing is that, you know, yes, it's become a bit of a, you know, bougie sort of thing now. Everyone wants to know, but on some level, especially for people like me who have been living this my whole life, I wasn't, you know, I didn't sort of like it when I was a teenager and then stop liking it and go to uni and become something else and then get back into it. This has been my entire life. There has been no break in Tiani. You know, like the only thing that I'm good at is being myself, being authentic and being who I am. Like I haven't ever dipped into what society expects of me. I've done everything pretty much the opposite of what society does. I've been a mother since I was 16. You know, I've been with my husband for 22 years, which a lot of spiritual people don't do because their twin flame is over there, blah, blah, blah. But the thing is that this has been my language and my whole life. Like I don't know life without astrology, nor do I need to, nor do I want to. It doesn't rule my life. I am not dictated to by astrology because I don't need the control or to be controlled. This is astrology for me, moves through me. The planets move me, and it's all about alignment. And the planets are never doing anything to us, ever. The planets are revealing things, and we can work with the planets. We can remedy difficult planets. We can remedy difficult placements. There is so much to share around astrology that I'm never going to be able to share everything I want to share in a little video where I'm introducing you to some stuff. Now, the whole premise of this video is just to show you the website, to help you to navigate the chart, just to look at the chart and to be able to identify things. You know, I'll throw in a couple of keywords, yada, yada, but ultimately, if you want to actually learn the language, you can go over onto my website. I've got a 7-week course that you just download straight away. You get all 7 videos. There's over 10 hours of me, you know, and the thing with astrology is, excuse me, the thing with astrology is you actually have to gel with the teacher, okay? Because like I said, astrology is free. You can go to the library, you can sit underneath the stars, you can track Venus, you can track Mercury, you can do all of those things for free. You can read the amount of people that have come to me going, I've been studying astrology for 15 years. They do week 1 of my workshop and they're like, I knew none of that. And I'm like, oh my God, it's the basics. So, you know, not everything that you read, you assimilate, or you embody, or you experience, or you practice. It's very important to be discerning, especially in this day and age, because there's a lot of, now we're going to have to look out for AI astrologers. Like, that's a thing, right? Like AI meditations and AI coming in and, they're writing essays for people, and they're going to start writing meditations for people. So there can be someone sitting next to me with no astrology experience. AI does everything for them. That builds their platform. So you have to be very discerning in this time of this psychological and technological warfare that we are about to enter. Like, that's just a fact. Like, that's not going to happen. Like, that's what's going to happen. What's real and what's not, especially over the next 5-6 years with Saturn and Neptune being together. Saturn is reality, Neptune is illusion. What's real, what's not. Saturn is going to spend the next 5-6 years in the same sign as Neptune. So it's going to be a very interesting 5 to 6 years, yeah? So you've got to tap into what's real within you and remember that we're human. I don't have filters. I'm not, this is a real body. And it's the same with who you're being taught off, because there's some astrologers that might not land for you, and that's okay. And I might be one of them, and I'm so okay with that. Like, find an astrologer that lands for you, yeah? Because then you're going to be able to practice and integrate and embody astrology, which I care more about than knowing. I don't, when someone regurgitates stuff from a book, my Mars is in the second house, which means blah, blah, blah. That's not astrology. That's cookbook astrology, which you do need at the beginning. Do not get me wrong. But that's not astrology. Astrology is a weaving of the star story. Astrology is a weaving of the cosmic invitation of who you are. Look at these, this is German. This is German, and this is actually not an astrology chart, but it looks very beautiful from Beautiful Lunar. But does have lots of astrology on there too. But this wheel is devoted to you, is what you called in, but it's also just a snapshot. We evolve, we progress, things shift, things move. Yeah. Nothing in the world excites me more than astrology. And it's weird because even when I meet some other astrologers, all I want to do is talk astrology, and they can, be, oh yeah, this, and this, and then they sort of go on and do other things. That's just not how I roll. I will pour astrology onto everything in every conversation, even if you're not interested. I mean, I've just been hanging out with family as Pluto enters Aquarius, and none of them care, but all I'm going is, Pluto has just moved into Aquarius for the first time in 250 years. The day Mars moved into Cancer, I seen this huge big black crab at the beach. And I'm just like, I never see huge crabs on a rock at the beach. Like, you see little ones, but he was massive. And I'm like, of course, Mars is in Cancer. Like, it's everywhere. Astrology is everywhere. Symbols are everywhere. Language is everywhere. It's about how we weave that together and how we align ourselves to this cosmic connection that we have, which is us. And so for me, astrology is everything. It still has never not excited me as to what you're seeing now. You will never get me on any sort of, I've been on many podcast interviews. I've been speaking about astrology for years, traveling Australia at Mind Body Spirit festivals many years ago. I will still get up and talk free in front of hundreds of people just because I want everyone to know, and just because I secretly want everyone to have the secret superpower. Because like I said, it's free. You just need some good guidance and some good navigation tools to help you to really ground it, to help you to put it together, to help you to embody it. And when you get too lost in your head with astrology, that's the time I go, get away, put all the books away, experience, because astrology is forever. And that's what's very difficult for most people to understand. Our weekend shamans, people that just want to go to a couple of workshops and they're masters. Even now, no one wants to give credit where credit is due. I see so many people, all of my students with all of my work, go out and do all of this stuff. I don't care that they don't credit me, because the universe knows all. Like, you can lie to yourself, but you cannot lie to the universe. And the thing is that, everything takes care of itself. But the thing is that you can't just learn, even my 7-week course, you can't just do that. Oh, and now I'm an astrologer. Absolutely not. Like, what I'm teaching in my 7-week MOD1 Astrology course is like me picking up like this much sand at the beach. literally. And that's what, you know, like I said, that's what sort of throws people out, is that they want all of the knowledge all at once. Trust me, I've got a bazillion books and I just want to infuse them into my body. And I do have Mercury trine Jupiter in my chart, and I've got Pallas and Gemini in the ninth house. So it's very easy for me to assimilate and experience and embody this information. That's just, I've always been like that. I'm like that with crystals, you know, all those. So I can look at a crystal, I can know what the crystal is because I've been working and doing all of this stuff for over 2 decades. But there's still so much more. Like, I'm not a medical astrologer, you know, I'm still learning about Egyptian terms, you know, like, you know, there is so much, and you don't need to know all of the things. If you don't know your own chart, then you're missing the point, right? Like, then you are missing the point. You want to know and embody your own chart and what's going on around you. So that's first and foremost. The micro helps you to understand the macro and helps you to experience and embody the macro. Yeah, I've even got my lovely little astrology podcast, which is the first time I bought this one, calendar. All astrology darlings. Okay, I'm going to share my screen because I want to get going with the actual teaching of this. But I hope you've enjoyed my intro, darlings. I hope you've enjoyed my intro. I could talk about astrology for a gazillion years, and I will, and I have been. So I am assuming you can see my screen now. Yes, you can. This is the website. You know, real astrologers do not use CoStar. They don't, you know, they use astrology software, but they're not using these apps, okay? These apps are so, again, be very mindful with who you're listening to astrology from, and where you're sourcing the information from. If all else fails, which it will, just come back to this website, astro.com.au. This is where you want to be. This is Liz Green. Liz Green is the OG astrologer. You want to learn astrology? She's got some fabulous books, yeah? So, and if you're in London, when I was in London, I went to visit the astrology shop, darlings. My God, it was just like heaven. I bought so many books. I would have bought more, but it was the beginning of our 3-week Europe trip, so I couldn't carry a gazillion books. I had to buy like real thin ones. But anyway, this is what it should look like, okay? Now, you want to come into horoscopes. So it'll look something like this. Now, go to extended chart selection, but even if you went to chart drawing, that's okay. Extended chart selection, click on that. And then it's going to, I'm just going to show you the edit bit here. This is what it's going to look like. Okay, this is your birth data entry. So you want to pop in everything. Your time of birth is very crucial. Okay, it is very important. It sets the entire chart up. Okay. If you do not know your birth time, you can set your birth time to be, say, 6 a.m. just to be when the sun is rising, okay? And that's going to give you more of a macro look at the chart. Most of the planets will be in the exact same signs that they were. It's just the housing, and I'm going to show you that in a minute. All of this, to be honest, all of this you don't even need to know about to begin with. If you still, you know, like I said, when I'm teaching my students and clients and all these sorts of things, in my programs or in my 12-month containers, if you can't tell me every planet in every house at every degree in every sign and pretty much every aspect in your chart, you don't need to know anything else. You know, adding all of that extra stuff just makes it confusing. And as much and as frustrating as all of my clients get with me, I am simple. I am a stellium in Taurus, darlings. I am all around simplicity. And one of my favorite quotes to live by Brandon Bayes is, you know, where there is complication, ego, simplicity, God. And that's how I live my life. And sometimes I'm too simple, and I get that because simplicity means a lot to me. And astrology can be simple if you allow it to be simple without trying to overcomplicate because you want to know more and you want to jump to level 10, you know, before level 1's even rooted. You know, for me, if the roots of your tree, which is the astrology tree, aren't deep in the earth, well, you know, all the other stuff's just an illusion. You know, it doesn't really matter. It really doesn't. I'm getting very hot here, like the ruby energy. You can click, I am going to click descending node because that's going to give us our nodes. Today is the 28th of March. So you can see that in this little bit here, you can pop the date that it is, which it'll naturally do anyway. You don't have to set anything else up, okay? And then you just click show the charts, baby. So you are going to see my chart, which a lot of astrologers don't show people their charts. I don't know why they're hiding themselves, but I have no problem. I am nothing if I'm not transparent, authentic, or sovereign. And I love my chart. It is fucking rad. Hence the reason, once you understand astrology, you're sort of just never intimidated by anyone. You know, like no one intimidates me because I'm like, why would I want your life? Like, I would never want someone else's life. I want my life. And look at my chart. Like, it is rad as fuck. Like, it is such a cool chart. And if you're not in love with your chart, you're not in love with yourself and you're not in love with your life. And sadly, some people, even through even through my teachings, they feel victim to their chart. And that's one of the first things I can say is that you are not a victim of your chart. You chose it. You chose what time to be born. You chose where to be born. You chose what date to be born. So this is all your choice. And this is a big part of accepting your chart. What you do need when you are studying astrology and learning astrology is a level of emotional and intellectual intelligence, because people get very bogged down in, oh, I've got this in the 12th house, poor me, and I'm a victim, blah, blah, blah. But you're not. You're not a victim. This is your chart for your reasons. Like, this is what you're meant to be doing. If you're trying to live someone else's life, well, then, yeah, you're going to fucking hate your chart, my friend, because you're trying to live someone else's life. But this here is your life. This is your chart. This is your attributes. This is your gifts. This is what you are. And I find it to be the glory of God, God damn it. You know, like, it couldn't be the more beautiful thing to look at, bar my husband and children's faces, of course, and nature. I mean, let's be honest, nature makes me cry. My 3 daughters and husband, their faces, and natal charts. They are the beauty of God. So firstly, what we're going to see is this wheel. Now, straight away, you want to be able to understand the glyphs of astrology, which are showing you what sign, where all the signs are. Okay, so straight away, there's a color code. We've got this orange for air signs, Aquarius, Libra, Gemini. Blue for water, Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces. Red for fire, Aries, Leo, and Sag. And green for earth. Well, who would have thought, huh? Capricorn, Taurus, and Virgo. Very simple. If you can't even name the glyphs, you need to start drawing them. I encourage all of my clients and people in my class to draw the glyphs, draw their chart out themselves, okay? So the ascendant is here on the left-hand side. Yeah, this is the 9 o'clock. If we're looking at it from a clock face, we've got 9 o'clock is the ascendant, 12 o'clock is the midheaven, 3 o'clock is the descendant, and 6 o'clock is the IC. These are the 4 angles, okay? And this is actually sunrise. And that's why if you don't have your birth time, you can make your birth time sunrise, which could be 5:50, it could be 6:10. You will have to play with that yourself. But what you're looking to get is the sun, which is this glyph here, the round circle with the circle inside the first house. All of the houses are numbered anti-clockwise. They are all the pie pieces, 1 through 12. Yeah. So straight away, we're looking at the outer wheel, which shows all the glyphs and signs. The 4 angles. Sunrise is the AC. That's why if you don't have your time of birth, you get your sun into the first house. Now, that is how you do horoscopes, right? So it's giving more of a macro feel. And what you'll get there is all of the planets being in their signs. So say I didn't know my time of birth. Mars would still be in Taurus the day I was born. Chiron would still be conjunct my sun. The only thing that can change is the moon. So say my time of birth was wrong, and you can see I've got a 27-degree moon. If my time of birth was, say, 6 hours wrong, it could have actually been a Leo moon, okay? So it's when the moon is at the very beginning of a sign or the very end of a sign, the moon could be wrong based on time. what the ascendant does is sets up the entire chart. So now Libra is my rising sign, my ascending sign. It was the sign on the horizon as I was born. The ascendant changes every 2 hours. 2 hours times 12 gives us 24 hours in a day, right? So each 2 hours of every day, we have a different rising sign, yeah? And this is why, as a Taurus sun, I might be very, very different to many other Taurians who are born on the 9th of May, also in Brisbane on the same year as me, because they have a Leo rising or a Cancer rising. So their whole chart will look and feel very different to me. What will stay the same is they will still have their sun in Taurus, Chiron in Taurus, Mars in Taurus, Venus in Taurus. Like, they will still have the same thing. So it's only, it's only the moon is the most changeable. And again, of course, if there was like a planet right at the end of the sign and you were born an hour later, you could be a 0 degree. And what I mean by 0 degree is that each sign, which you can see, is cut off here into little sections. This is the 0 degrees, and this is the 29 degrees of the sign. So we're looking at 0 of a sign to 29 of a sign, and that's where the planet will move through. Now, we do read the chart anti-clockwise, okay? So first house, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, we're reading it anti-clockwise. So the rising sign sets up our entire chart, and it will put all of the planets in the houses relating to where our rising sign was. Okay, so that's the difference. That's why some Taurians are more, aggressive. Maybe they've got Mars and Aries as their rising sign, or, what we're doing is the ascendant is the way we interact with our world and the environment. It's sort of that face that we show, but that we are, yeah? The sun is essentially our core. It is our purpose. It is who we are. The moon is that subconscious inner psyche self, yeah? So they're the sort of the big three that everyone looks at. So if you hear someone like, oh, what's your big three? You can straight away, and this is what I love about this particular website, people still to this day, after I've been looking at millions of charts, send me random charts from weird websites, and they look so ridiculous, very hard to understand. This chart is so easy to understand. When it comes to like the color coding, the glyphs are inside the houses. So ultimately what you're looking at is the signs. So this is the 12 archetypes. Then you are looking at inside of each of the pie pieces, which is the houses. You are looking at all of the planets. These little horseshoe looking guys are the nodes, the north and south node. They are what give us our eclipses. The key is Chiron, who is a key to unlock your chart. So to know your Chiron is to know your wound, but to know your alchemy. As you can see, my Chiron and Sun are in a cazimi, which means they are exactly at the same degree. And these are all the planets. And you can again see all of this down here, Sun right through down to Chiron. So there are all the glyphs for the planets. So you can just start to go, oh, Mercury, that's what that looks like. Oh, here he is up here. So you want to utilize these little sections because they're teaching you. That's what's cool about astro.com is it's teaching you. It's not written in like some websites that just write everything down. And it's really like, well, how am I supposed to follow that? Especially if you don't know the glyphs. This chart is the planets talking to one another. Okay, so ultimately you've got the three main basic things that you're looking at is the houses, which are the pie pieces, which are the themes of your life. Let's quickly go through them. The first house is you. It is literally just you, your body, yourself, your interactions, the way you look, the way you interact with the world. It is you, yeah? And everything else is everything else around you. So the second house then is your money, your finances, your set of values, your value systems, even your relationship to food and what nourishes you, property. Your third house is your mind, what you think about, what you speak about. It's your communications. It also represents siblings and neighbors. It represents your neighborhood. Yeah. So what's going on in the neighborhood? The fourth house, which is an angular house. So an angular house is where I talked about at the beginning with the clock, the 9 o'clock ascendant, 12 midheaven, 3 descendant, and 6 IC. So these are the 4 angular houses. And really quickly, you know, they set up our entire chart. The first house is you, and that's what people ask. Who are you? The fourth house is where have you come from? It is your home, your ancestry, your soul's home. It's very internal. It is the midnight part of the chart. The seventh house, which is opposite the ascendant. So of course, then we've got to remember that each sign has its polarity point. So whatever your ascendant sign is, your descendant will be the opposite sign. So again, learning the opposites is very important in astrology. So the descendant is our 7th house, our angular house, which is relationships. So it's who are you? 1st house, 4th house, where have you come from? 7th house, who are you married to? 10th house, midheaven, what's your career? Yeah. So those 4 angles are very important. So 4th house, like I said, ancestries, your childhood, you know, relationship with the mother, family, home life, even your soul's home. It is the midnight part of the chart. I was only referring to the 9, 12, 3, and 6 as a way to look at it on a clock face. Actually, the ascendant is sunrise, the descendant is sunset, the midheaven is midday, and the IC is midnight. Yeah. So the 4th house is very hidden. It's the roots of our chart. The 5th house is play, fun. Yeah. Children, romance, sex for pleasure, pleasure and leisure, hobbies, creativity, self-expression. Lots of, you know, famous people have a lot of planets in their 5th house and 11th house, that axis of creativity and expression and, you know, wanting to play and, you know, act. The 6th house is similar to the 3rd, both Mercury ruled. It's our daily rituals, it's our daily routine, it's what we do every day, it's that mundane. I like to call it the mundane. And you know, that's, like I said, you know, I've got Pisces here on my 6th house. You know, it is the magic in the mundane for me. Like I said, being spiritual is easy. I call it human bypassing. You know, everyone calls it spiritual bypassing, but I call it human bypassing. So ultimately, my computer is going to go dead. So I'm just going to stop this share. We're at house 6 and I'm going to pause the recording and I will be back. Okay. We love a bit of live action, you know. Let me share my screen again. It actually gave me a chance to pump my friggin' aircon all the way down into the office and go to the toilet. So house 6, obviously this is, you know, as many as I can get it. Like I said, my MOD1, it's over 10 hours of my videos. And like I said, even that's just picking up a grain of sand, because you then go into Hellenistic and traditional and the mythology and, you know, Mesopotamia and just like going back into the things. That's not my forte. You know, I am, like I said, a very practical magic person, an embodied astrologer. If it's not useful to me now, I sort of disregard it. Like if I can't utilize it and work with it in my everyday life as a human, as an embodied human, well, yes, don't get me wrong, like mythology is fucking amazing. And once you understand some of the mythology of, well, all the mythology of the planets and things, but you know, I'm back in 1920, blah, blah, blah. Like I'm not interested in all of that sort of stuff. Yes, I know it, but I'm not interested in teaching that, because you can go and find very clinical, very like, it's all intellect. They, you know, some of the best astrologers are just old men drinking Coke. Like, let me give you the hot tip. They're not these like spiritual, look at me, I'm wearing amethyst clusters, blah, blah, blah. They're not that. They don't see astrology as this spiritual portal. You know, they look at it, they can, you know, they track events with it, world events with it. Like, oh my God, it's, you know, it can be very dry, cut. It can be very sciencey, which I think it is. I mean, I'm a quantum reality nerd. So to me, quantum reality is real, and astrology is one of the most realist things that exists. Like I can't believe people don't live with astrology. Like they're raw dog in life. Like, oh yeah, all this shit's happening to me. It's like, no, you're just having your Uranus opposition, my friend. Like for me, awareness is power. And astrology empowers us to not only accept what we're going through, but to also accept other people. Like I was saying earlier, that's why, like, I'm not intimidated by anyone, or I don't want anyone else's life, because it is no interest to me in trying to replicate someone else, you know, when I am the best version of myself because I chose this epic chart. And then when you understand astrology, you have acceptance of other people as well. It's like, oh, you've got your moon there having, oh, I get it now. You know, like you just have this understanding. And it's not oh yeah, be an asshole and it's okay because you've got a fucking blah blah blah. It's like, no, there's an understanding, it's an empathy, it's a compassion for a transit that someone might be going through. But people who are unaware are still having the transit, but often they're finding life to be fucking brutally difficult with no awareness of what's going on, but constantly feeling like life is happening to them, on top of them, pushing them, forcing them. But when you understand astrology and the language and the cycles and the shifts and the layers and all of the things, even when you understand it, it can still be hard. Don't get me wrong. It's not like even in a hardship, I am like, oh, this is like the best thing ever that my house flooded and that we lost all of the bottom part of our house, like our second story downstairs. Oh, we lost all of that in the floods. Did I go, yay, it's just because Pluto's opposite my moon? Was that a big part of it? Yes. Did it make absolute literal sense? Absolutely. It doesn't take away from the experience. It just helps you to maneuver through it better. And it helps you to become aware. And again, often people who feel victims to life don't understand astrology, or they don't want to, because playing the victim is easy, right? Like it's just easy. But when you're empowered and you have awareness, it's like the whole Pluto thing is that people eat lies when they're hungry. And over the past few years, we have seen how very, very, very hungry people are. People do not want to question anything, i.e. the government. People do not want to question themselves. They want to be told and spoon-fed what to do. Take this, do this, live like this, because then they don't have to take any responsibility for the consequences of their actions because they were told to do something. However, astrology pushes you to become self-responsible, right? Like that's just what it does. You can see something happening and there's a level of, how am I going to play into this now? Like sometimes it's so fucking textbook, it's not funny. You're just like, oh my God, I throw my hands up. This is a textbook. I'm taking myself fucking to the beach for the day because I know that that's where, I need to be. But you're empowered, again, that forearming yourself can be forewarning yourself. And like I said, not in a way where you're controlled, like you're scared of every Mercury retrograde, which again, happens a few times a year, nothing to be scared of, where you're not buying into the fear around an eclipse or whatever, because you're like, hey, I know where that's happening in my chart. And that's more important than listening to shit online going, oh my God, it's eclipse season. Oh my God, it's Mercury retrograde. And I think sometimes the hardest thing is I have to listen to astrologers say, let's blame the planets, let's blame Mercury retrograde. And I'm like, this is the problem. You and you alone are the key to your life. With astrology, self-mastery, self-sovereignty, self-responsibility is accessible, and it makes your life so liberating. Let me tell you, it's the only way I've lived my life. So I've never felt a victim. No matter what's happened in my life, I have never felt sorry for myself. And I'm not saying or dismissing grief that I've been through or things like that, but it's never been like, oh, poor me, why me, all this, all that, I don't have that makeup in me, I suppose, either. But also astrology has been my only language since I was a child. So I've always just understood the bigger picture and I've always had perspective. So c'est la vie, we all live different lives. Anyway, astrology can help you with that though. If you're still stuck in that, astrology can help you. So we were at the sixth house being the mundane, what I call the mundane, but not in a bad way. Like it is what you do every day, how you do it, your rituals, your routine. It also is your health. And the sixth house is also like your craft, your sense of service, how you are of service in your, say, work. 10th house is career, but 6th house is work. you know, and it can be like that you drive the same route to work every day, that you work 9 to 5, things like that. As you can see, I've got nothing there. That's never a life that I've experienced. I've never had a full-time job where I've had to work every day. I've anything that society has, most people have done, I've never done in my life. So it just makes sense, right? When you look at someone's chart. 7th house, our angular house, sunset, all things relationships. Again, I'm giving a very small bit. You know, please understand that people are going to go, oh, but it means so much more. Yes, it does. And I don't have 600 years right now to spend here. I mean, I've probably already been talking for quite some time. I am really just introducing you to the chart, introducing you to a bit of me and the astrology and the magic. Because I could talk for 1 hour on just the first house and planets being in the first house. Like that could be a whole 1 hour. But alas, that's why I have my astrology course, because you can go and spend 10 hours diving into all of this and understand the language, the planets, the houses more in depth, start weaving your own magic when it comes to interpreting you. Yeah. So this is very, you know, this is very introductory. Okay. Just so that you can jump on the website and have a bit of an idea. So the 7th house, all relationships, contracts, business partnerships, open enemies. What you project is very much around the 7th house. It's the mirror to the 1st house, which is the self. I even include friendships here because to me, all relationships, often the 11th house is friendships, but I feel like the 11th is more acquaintances and groups that you hang around as opposed to just the friendships that you are in. I feel like the 7th is the friendships that you are in. The 8th is all things sex on a deep consummated way, like in a very transformational, magical way. The 5th house is sex in romance, flirting, fun. Sex is pleasure. Yes. So that's the 5th house. That is absolutely the 5th house. Traditional astrology will never refer to the 8th house as sex. I have an 8th house stellium. It is sex. Okay. It is sex. It is hedonistic sex. And of course, Taurus does rule my 8th house. So that amplifies it for me. But the 8th house is that consummated sex. It's deep spiritual transformation through the merging with one another. And that is what the 8th house is the other. So you can see, you know, the partner in the 8th house and the 7th house, you know, because the 7th and the 8th, they have that sort of same connection. But the 8th house can also be, well, what are their resources? You know, are you well looked after financially through them? Did you get an inheritance? It can be bills that you owe. You know, this is the money that you make, the 2nd house, and this is the money that you may owe. The 8th house, or the money that are the resources that help you. Which could be partners, inheritance, like I said. Some people with lots of 8th house stuff are like, you know, business owners. They're very good with money, accountants, banks, stuff like that. So it can be 8th house as well. But, you know, I call the 8th house sex, magic, and rock and roll because it's all around shadow walking and it's all around deep psychic, spiritual transformation and being able to be, you know, it's a whole psychological connection to yourself and others. And often 8th house, you know, lots of planets in the 8th house is called, you know, 3 or more planets in one house is called a stellium of energy. So it's lots of condensed energy. You know, they are often helping people, holding space for people. You know, that's why it's funny that the 8th house can be people that are like accountants and banks because they're holding money for people. Like that's what they're doing. It's so cool. The 9th house sort of like stems on from that. It's like a lighter version of the 8th house. I see it is beliefs and philosophy and foreign travel. It's law. But it's also that spiritual quest, like your quest for life. You know, who am I? Why am I here? And it's interesting because, you know, it seems like the lighter version of the 8th house. Then the 10th house, which is the midheaven here, is the top of the chart. Like it is where we are heading. That's why the bottom of the chart, the IC, is the roots. How strong and solid are the roots? Yeah. So the midheaven is where you are heading. So the 10th house is how other people see you in a different way. Like the ascendant and the midheaven are two very yang energies. Yeah. Not to say that the descendant and IC aren't just as important. This is the DC. This is the IC. So the 4th and 7th house. But the midheaven is like how people see you, like your reputation. So Excuse me, I'm saying a billion words. I need lots of water. So ultimately, you know, like how I see a famous person, you know, that's more than midheaven. It's like that's their reputation. And if you have a very hard transit go through your 10th house, which means a planet in the sky at the moment go through your 10th house, you know, you can be brought to your knees in that transit, because if there's been, you know, if you're doing things out of integrity or out of alignment, all of a sudden you're in the spotlight for the wrong reason. So it can be that very spotlight. Whereas the ascendant is yang, it's because it's the way you connect, and you know, you're moving with, you know, your environment and your relationships with life. Yeah. Whereas the midheaven can be more how people see you as well. But it's also, of course, your goals, your ambitions, your career, like where you're heading in your career and in your life, you know, where you want to get to. The 11th house is everything to do with communities and groups, future seeding, ideas, dreams, you know, your commitment to your dreams and your goals. And then the 12th house is what's hidden, sort of asylums, retreats, spiritual retreats, how you devote yourself to your own spiritual connection to the divine. You know, it's anything to do with like yoga, spirituality, and ultimately, you know, everyone's chart will have a different sign that rules their house, unless you have, you know, like, because ultimately that's what sets your chart up as your ascendant. So just to recap, the houses are the themes in your life. They are numbered 1 through 12. Inside are each of the planets, and of course they have their own properties and qualities that you can unpack for a million years. On the outside of the wheel, you have the signs, the archetypes, so to understand that we have all 12 archetypes within us. So you want to hate on a sign, well, you've got that sign in your chart, baby. And to also remember that signs are not people. Signs are not people. If you were going, Taurus is that person because of this, it's like, no, you've missed the point. Taurus is an archetype that we all have within us. We have all 12 archetypes. So it's about becoming whole within all 12 of the archetypes, and not segregating a bad experience with one Virgo to go, all Virgos are the same. Of course, if there is, you know, a strong Virgo archetype, we're going to see those very Virgoian themes in that person. Absolutely, because that's a very strong archetype for them. But it doesn't become who they are. They're not just a Virgo, or, you know, that Scorpio did you wrong, so you hate Scorpios. When it comes to understanding the archetypes, you are going to gel more with certain signs than you are with others, all dependent on the planets, you know, your moon signs, your Mercury, the way you communicate, your sun, that sort of personality. All of this is layered and complex. You know, when we look at the synastry between you and me and my children, it's all there. It's all there. I see how my children see me. You know, I can see all of it in their chart. So again, it's so layered and complex that it's not just that person's this, so they are this. It's like, no, but they might only have one sign in that. You know, so many, it's like, oh, so many people might only have their sun in Aries, but nothing else is in Aries. So we can't, again, just assume and make these irrational, sensationalized sun sign things on people, because that's just inaccurate, and that's a projection. You know, that's a big projection of us and not understanding ourselves. So when we understand that we have all 12 signs within us, then we can start to, you know, to look at, well, what signs are most important for us, where are most of my planets, so on and so forth. Now, when we look at this little, so ultimately all the lines are talking about conversations that they're having with one another. All the planets are talking to one another. The blue lines are more harmonious, the red more tense. This green one is an uncomfortable one. And then there's lots of minor aspects and things like that. That's all shown here. But again, you don't even have to worry about this little stairwell of goodness until you go, oh, I know that my Neptune's in this sign at this degree in this house, and I know what that means. Then you will start to build your language of astrology and go, oh, well, if I've got Neptune in a fire sign, then if there's another fire sign thing going on, they're going to get along really well. So you want to start to look at the elements of your chart, and that's all written down here. So this little guy is a real clever little clever little table, darlings. Don't dismiss this one, yeah? You've got the elements written down here: fire, air, earth, and water. And that's, you know, when you go along, you can see how many of each of the elements. So you might lack an element. You might be really predominant in an element. And then these are the qualities or modality. It's called either or, quality, modality. Cardinal, the beginners; fixed, the builders; mutable, the changes, the adaptable ones. Yeah. So then you start to, you know, find out the signs. You know, each of the elements have 3 signs, and we can see that by their color coding. Yeah. So our earth signs are Capricorn, Virgo, and Taurus. They are the 3 earth signs. And then when it comes to the qualities of cardinal, fixed, and mutable, there are four signs that make up those qualities. So for cardinal, it is the Libra, Aries, Cancer, Capricorn. So you can see straight away that there is one of each element in each of the qualities. So in cardinal, fixed, and mutable, there is one earth, one fire, one water, one air. Yeah. And they are making some tense sort of chats. Yeah. They're a little bit more tense. So look, I could go on for a million years, but I feel like that's probably enough for today. I'm going to pop this onto my YouTube channel, which will be where you're watching it right now. So if you've got any comments or questions, or you want to learn more, of course, you can pop to my website. I will pop that in the notes, where you can go and purchase my 7-week course with over 10 hours of videos and notes for every week as well. I talk a lot about, obviously, I go through all the 12 archetypes, the houses, the angles, elements, qualities, sect light, if you're a day or a night chart. Talk a little bit about retrogrades, stelliums, you know, just again, just it's some of the foundation, because there's many different books you can read, and you're still going to absorb so much, because every astrologer sees astrology or experiences astrology through their own chart, you know, through their own chart lens. So, you know, for, like I said, for some astrologers, it's all just very clinical. It's just that the sun is this. Some astrologers wouldn't even work with the Chiron. They don't want to know about Lilith. You know, I don't have Lilith on this chart, but of course Lilith is there, and we've got the 4 asteroids. You know, there is so much to dive into. But I say, you know, some astrologers are like, no asteroids are worth ever looking into. You know, some astrologers are like, you know, they fight over certain things. I'm not one of those astrologers. Jump on this website, start to navigate your own chart, you know, start to understand yourself, understand the language. Ultimately, the one next thing I will share is I'll just click this button here. It says with transits, right? Before I go. And ultimately what happens is all of these green planets come on the outside of your chart. Now, that is where everything is today. Okay, so the 28th of March, 2023 in Brisbane right now, this is where all of the planets are. You know, the moon is in Gemini. The moon's just been on my palace. Not that you can see her because I haven't put the asteroids in. But you know, Mars has just moved into Cancer. You can see he's just clicking over, and he's going to move and hit my midheaven. So, you know, there's so many reasons why I finally am up here doing this. I will be doing a personal numerology years as well. And, you know, popping that on this, my YouTube channel as well, just so that you can know what personal year you're in. And this is actually showing you where everything as we talk. And again, use this little box. It shows you. So you can see here that Venus, my Venus is 26 Taurus, which is exactly conjunct the Algol star, Medusa. A masterclass will be coming about that. And at the moment, she's at 13 degrees Taurus. So you can see I've got a 10-degree Taurus Mars. It's very sexy times over here. That's nothing new. But, you know, Venus has just activated my Mars. You know, Uranus has been activating my Taurus stellium because he's in Taurus for the first time in 84 years. Yeah. You can see this big cluster of planets. They're all in Aries. It's Aries season. So we've got the Sun, Chiron, Mercury, and Jupiter. Hello, this Mercury, Jupiter. All I want to do is talk and teach. So it's really great that I'm here today being able to share this with you. So that can just give you the little insight as to where everything is. But again, without understanding what all of the planets mean and houses and all these things, it can just look a little bit confusing, like what's going on. But I really hope that Today, I've given you a little bit of insight in where to go to get the information, what you're looking at on each part of the wheel, how to use these little grids down here. And just, the houses are really important. That's why I gave keywords around them, because obviously when you've got planets in those houses, that's going to be important for you. And, you've got to, also think about, like, when we're talking about the planets, I go 10 planets, so Sun through Pluto. The nodes, the true node, which is the north node, and the descending node, which is the south node, they're not planets, they're sweet spots in the sky. They're on the elliptical where the sun and the moon and the earth come together and we get our eclipses. So they're not actually planets, they're magical little fated points in our chart. And Chiron is like, he's not a planet, but he's extremely important. But if I'm just looking at the 10, we're looking at 10 planets, 12 houses, there's always going to be empty houses. That's not a big deal. So don't worry about that. So I just hope that this has been just like a little invitation into how rad astrology is, how rad you are, how rad we all are, that we have this incredible superpower at our fingertips. And yeah, that it just instigates something inside of you that wants you to know more about who you are, and parts of your soul and parts of yourself and destiny and wounds and all the things that our chart gives to us. And remember, there is, like I said, many rabbit holes that we can go down. But without the fundamentals, it's hard to actually process anything else. It's hard to understand when other astrologers are talking about things, because you sort of don't know your own chart. So to know thyself is to master thyself. Get on astrology. It is the language of the future. I mean, the fact that it's not taught in schools is beyond me, but don't worry, we know how to play hot cross buns on that recorder. Don't know how to do our tax, but that's okay. Obviously I teach my children about their charts. So I really just wanted to jump in today. I hope that you have loved this. I've loved it. Enjoy and have fun on your little journey of self-discovery, darlings. Mwah. Love you all. Bye.